Okay, welcome to a class today on Descartes. And Descartes wrote a book, a kind of essay really, called Meditations, and there are 6 meditations in the essay. And it sounds like he's having a good hard long think one night, and then the next night, and then the next night, because he often refers to it as yesterday when he goes back to the previous meditation. And if I were going to recommend one bit of philosophy to everybody, I would probably recommend this book, just because, I mean, in particular, the first 2 meditations. And that's because there's a very strong argument, or very interesting argument, and it's certainly very famous because it's got the old cogito ergo sum. Yeah, I think, therefore I am. I think this is certainly something that Descartes is very famous for. And it's a really powerful essay, in particular, in my opinion, the first 2 meditations. And what he wants to know is, he wants to know, what can we be certain of? Yeah, what can we actually know? What are the limits of knowledge? They really are the questions that are driving this search for answers. Yeah, he wants to know the answers to these questions. They're obviously epistemological questions. Yeah, this is about the theory of knowledge. What can we know? What is it possible to know? What are the limits of knowledge? And so he asks himself, firstly, what can be doubted? Yeah, and he asks himself this because he wants to see if there's anything out there that's absolutely undoubtable. Yeah, is there something that nobody would ever doubt and you just can't doubt, that's absolutely 100% must be true? Yeah, and so he comes to the conclusion right at the beginning that all that I have learned has been via the senses. Yeah, but via his ears, his eyes, his nose, his mouth. Yeah. And this idea is very similar to what we saw in Hobbes. Yeah, and by the way, Descartes got an answer from Hobbes. He sent his meditations out to all of the clever people around at the time, and many famous people, perhaps who you know as well, who you have come across. And this was because he wanted all of the clever people around him to tell him what was wrong with his logic. You know, he was another very intellectually honest person, and he wanted to know, are there any weaknesses in my argument? Okay, and so he claims, yeah, that all that he has learned has been via his senses. However, he's well aware that sometimes our senses deceive us, okay? And so we can doubt our senses. And he even makes this point, which comes up in a few different texts. I think it came up in Plato. How can we know that we aren't dreaming? Yeah? How can we know that we aren't dreaming? Now, he points out, and this is very important because it gives you an idea straight away at the beginning, that he considers certain knowledge, mathematical knowledge, to be more certain than just knowledge of what's around you. Okay? And so he says, whether we are awake or asleep, 2 plus 3 is always 5. The internal angles of a triangle always add up to 180 degrees. A square always has 4 sides. Yet he claims that even when you're asleep, you'll never see a square with 5 sides. Now, you might disagree with him there. You might say that it is possible to dream of absurd, self-contradictory things. But certainly Descartes thinks it's not possible. And I can see where he's coming from here. It would be pretty hard to dream of a square with 5 sides, but I suppose you might